See where I put things I create at. Not for the Weaker Sex by David J. Rowbottom. Volume 1, How to be Born, the Vehicle. And there it is, your own placenta, keeping your feet warm. Full of nutrients delivered by nature's vending machine, the umbilical cord. There's not much to do as you hover on your head with your feet above you. But luckily, you don't understand the concept of do yet, so you're not troubled in any way by your situation. And there you remain for what seems like ages, bored. Occasionally, your leg spasms and you kick out. This is usually followed by a dull flurry of distant, almost sub-aqua voices. Occasionally, this a little red bag that is your home wobbles, and you feel as though your axis has shifted. Sometimes your feet are at the top, and your head is at the bottom. Sometimes the reverse. Weirdly, your bottom seems to remain in the middle. Throughout, you continue to feast on those delicious nutrients. Yum! The taste seems familiar, but you can't quite place it. Then you remember that this is the only thing you've ever eaten, so it probably reminds you of earlier times when you ate the same thing. Is your carriage getting smaller? Over time, the bag starts to get a bit tight. Perhaps you're consuming too much food? You do seem to be putting on weight. Or is your room shrinking? As you have no idea what you are or how big you are supposed to be, you continue to feast. Your placenta shifts a little, and you instinctively try to reposition it correctly. The last thing we need is the placenta blocking the nice cooling draft that emanates from the light at the end of the tunnel, eh? Weeks become months, and that's about it, really. Nothing else to report. You get into a bit of a routine. Sometimes you slosh about. Sometimes you delicately sway. Occasionally you flip. Not much to do at all. Sometimes you nostalgically reminisce about the mad dash you attended with your single-celled competitors earlier in your existence. You wonder whatever happened to your eager colleagues. Journey 1, on your marks, get set, I'm coming. It all started just after you heard a muffled grunt and the word, yes, and then you were off. You remember wiggling as fast as you could with your best friend by your side when suddenly you got split up. He went left and you went right. Your disappointment was short-lived as you instinctively swam for your life. Where you were headed, you did not know. Why you were heading, there was also a mystery. All you knew was when to go, and this was when. So you swam, as though your very existence depended on it. And then, up ahead, you saw it. It was beautiful. You simply had to get to it first. It was the largest cell you'd ever seen. It was the only cell you'd ever seen. You had an overwhelming urge to swim straight for it. Ahead you watched as faster, but clearly less skillful competitors crashed on the dangerous, acidic walls and burnt up. With your strong tail and clear mind, you dodged and weaved until you saw no one ahead of you. You were in the lead. You wiggled and swam as fast as your little axial filament would allow. The delicious egg cell was now in sight. It was yours for the taking. You pondered what you would do when you reached it. This moment of mindless contemplation allowed a competitor to draw alongside. They were a huge, oversized plasma membrane with a mitochondria to match. And wow, what a mover. You strained every part of your nucleus to keep up. It was all you could do not to give up and simply admire this beast. But no. You wanted that egg more than you'd ever wanted anything before in your whole 3-second life. You put on a final spurt and draw alongside, just long enough to flick out your tail and knock your rival off balance, causing them to descend into a spiral and crash into the acidic wall of goo below. You looked back and saw that you were alone, apart from the 500 million or so other little swimmers, and realized that if you could keep up your current pace, the egg was yours. As you got closer, you realized that you really had no idea what to do when you got there. Do you land and knock on? Do you orbit until contacted? You went for Plan C and smashed through the walls with a satisfying thud. And there you sat, in warm yolk, watching with a glee that surprised you as your 500 million brothers and sisters bounced off and instantly died. Journey 2, long division, and then you were off again, bobbing along, just the two of you, with your combined chromosome pair count of 46, 23 for you and 23 for the other half. Ah, you think, doesn't the fallopian tube look lovely this time of the year? And then you divided, and redivided, and again, and again. Too many to mention, hey? Before you know it, you're sitting comfortably in the uterus slurping on nutrients. And then suddenly, whoosh, Journey 3, what's that? And there it is, your own placenta, by your side. Well, that was exciting. A bit like putting on a turtleneck sweater that's 2 sizes too small. You blink. There's a flurry of excitement. You appear to be the center of attention. Your feet are cold. You miss your nutrients. You hear a snip. This is the first thing that has ever hurt, so you cry. A lot. This townhouse called home. It's more spacious but colder. And you miss your vending machine. This seems to you like a backward step. A case of technology reversing. Writer's note, in the words of Aldous Huxley, technological progress has merely provided us with more efficient means for going backwards. Consider the following. Digital cameras. Everything is stored in the cloud these days, all wonderful and efficient until someone decides to pull the plug on us all. LP's wonderful tactile things with huge works of art and prose for the masses to consume, compared again with cloud storage and a single thumbnail picture to represent your work on a tiny screen. Screens. These were once huge and cumbersome. However, more and more of us are watching our favorite visual tidbits on tiny screens, sometimes recorded using low-resolution devices. Speakers. Where once in the corners of your room there stood monolithic, handcrafted speaker cases so large that they could be used as spare rooms when the in-laws came to visit, there are now tiny, plastic-encased cinema systems with the bass response of a strip of tinfoil and the richness of sound of a choir boy in the midst of puberty. Concorde supersonic travel that saw you get from London to New York in 3 hours, some 3,500 miles, can be compared, some would say unfairly, to a London to Glasgow train journey of 400 miles, which takes 4 hours. Videotape. These things could remember where you paused them. Forever. Can a DVD do that? Mobile phones. The side of my face regularly hangs up the capacitive touchscreen, and my mum always shouts at me for not speaking clearly into the receiver. There is a receiver, as far as I can tell, and talking into it takes the ear speaker about 6 inches away from my ear. Computer keyboards compare the typing action of a good and old-fashioned beige rattler to the smooth laptop. No bounce or feel, type. Don't even get me started on typing on a tablet or other touchscreen device. So there you lie, freezing cold in your crib, wondering why you now have to scream at the top of your voice to be fed, when, before all, your required supplements had been on tap. If they plugged you back into the umbilical cord, they could leave you to doze gently and, more importantly, quietly. You could graze at your leisure. Something else you have noticed is that although you seem to be spending most of your time on your back, a feeling not totally new to you from your red bag days, all the walkers and carriers around you appear to be upside down. You spent many happy times with your head at the bottom and your bottom at the top, while all the time your bottom remained in the middle. It seemed perfectly natural. All the blood rushed to your brain where it was needed, and your feet were warmed by the placenta. Perhaps the reasons for this would become apparent the more you studied these strange creatures who lovingly attend to your every need. They seem to have your welfare at the top of their agenda, so perhaps, for now, you can relax in the warmth of your own poo. The warmth of your own poo. For months, the umbilical cord gave and took away everything you needed and didn't need. But now you don't have one. You know how the things you need arrive. But how do the things you no longer require leave your system? And then you find out. It sends everyone into a panic and places you where you most like to be, at the center of attention. You can't see it yourself, but you don't have to know that it is grim. Even the creatures who love you the most are pushed to breaking point as they try to tidy up what can only be described as a shitstorm. That'll teach them, eh? You want your bag back. Fun's over. After a while, even the fun of covering everything in your line of fire with excrement wears off, and you begin to question what the point of view is. You even annoy yourself with all the pooping and crying and screaming and sleeping. You've worked out that the two main walkers and carriers are called Mummy and Daddy. These are your parents. You find it ludicrous that they have waited years for you to come along and simply can't believe how lucky they are. You do nothing of value, right? Absolutely nothing. Your sense of self-worth is rock bottom, and you feel pity for these creatures who spend all their time tending to your, quite frankly, pathetic and petty needs. They play with you, let you pee on them, get knuckle-deep in your excrement, let you scream at them, let you keep them awake all night. One of them even has a couple of built-in vending machines. It's not as easy as before when you were intravenously linked, because you have to be plugged into one or the other, but it's fun, and the nosh appears to be as nutrient-rich as the stuff the umbilical cord delivered. Another embarrassing thing you do is babble. My God, do you babble? You can't seem to stop yourself. And sometimes bits of spit come out. It's as though you have something of great interest to say, and yet when you open your mouth, all that comes out is gibberish and drivel. Writer's note. This sounds like a 1920s vaudeville act. But they still seem to love you unconditionally. You wonder if there's a way you can use this to your advantage, but you reason, quite rightly, that something so devious is beyond your little innocent self at the moment. I mean, you're only just babbling. But soon, the Machiavellian manipulation will begin. The pit crew arrives. You expand through numerous outfits, all hideous, knitted by something called a grandma. You're only a baby, but you can tell a shit pattern when you see one. She is, though, very proficient and can bang out socks, gloves, jumpers, scarves and hats at an alarming rate and to a very high standard. But every single one looks awful. There's also a large head with the same hairstyle as you, which regularly presents itself directly in front of your face and says a variant of, a gooby gooby goo. Cheeky man. Who's a cheeky man? Come here, little fella. Who's my boy? This, you discover, is the opposite of a grandma. It's a granddad. He seems nice, but does nothing for you at all. In fact, he has been known to steal your food directly from your little spoon. These two extra people may be easier than the other two to manipulate, because they regularly support you against all logic in times of friction. Weirdly, your lips curl up at the edges each time you see them. When they are not knitting or stealing your sustenance, they hand you things which you grab eagerly and shake. These things rattle when you shake them, and they make you gurgle. Gurgling. You can handle. It's the babbling you need to get under control. Then one day you see a different head. It's still old and still speaks in gibberish cliches. They're different from Grandad's, but much the same in tone and delivery. This, you discover, is Grandpa. He comes armed with his very own granny, who cannot put you down for 1 minute. This, you decide, is too confusing and requires sleeping on. What next? Let's be honest, the next few years are a bit of a disappointment. You achieve very little. You stand up, you fall down. You jog a little, you fall down. You kick a ball, you fall down. You learn to poo in a bucket, something you did not see coming. Your parents work hard to not show their disappointment in you, which is nice. Grandma still knits. Grandad is working hard to find original things to say. Grandpa has given up totally and taken to sitting in the corner of the room with a large black and white sheet of paper in front of his face. Granny has not grown out of picking you up all the time. Granny is becoming a nuisance. And then, see where I put things I create at.